that you enthrone in the society. So Mandela is an avatar. People like that do not die.
Okay.
They continue to live forever in the eyes of men,
Abubakar,
in books, in literature, and everywhere.
Very well, very well. I think Mandela, like we mentioned earlier on, is actually a legend, that built a very beautiful coalition, rainbow coalition that is difficult to defeat or to equal in our lifetime. We pray we're able to get it. At the risk of mentioning names, even if we have one in Nigeria, God forbid, probably the person may have been killed via a teacup in prison or a letter injection. So we have a system that is very draconian, that is a system that is oppressive, system that is geared towards protecting itself. So it's difficult to really get. You discover that even in minority regime, wicked in quotes, supremacists, white supremacists, they still respected the ideal of a human being. Mandela was able to spend 19 years in Robben Island, 8 years in Portsmouth prison. He was not killed via poison or letter injection. He still lived. But in Nigeria, I'm very sure they would have incited the security operatives, mobile police, FCC, and what have you, in a manner, this type of Gestapo, amalgam of fascist Gestapo against his family. So it's difficult to have that type of thing in a society like this that is very uncivilized. But we are getting towards that. Gradually, I think we'll be able to reach that kind of thing. So we salute Mandela, and in no time, I think his footprints will endure forever. Because to live in the hearts of men, you leave behind.
It's to live forever.
It's not to die.
It's not to die. Yes, I agree.
It's not to die.
I agree.
Well, in terms of the lessons that we can draw from that life.
Yeah, we can draw, particularly our leaders can draw a lot from it. Mandela was a humanist. I mean, if you take, for instance, what happened during the Abacha regime, Mandela tried to help the Abiola family one way or the other financially. And after that, when the Abacha regime became so draconian, they killed Sarowiwa, he decided to reflect the wishes of the people of South Africa and Nigerians by mounting a campaign against that regime, which led, also partly contributed to the issue of sanctions. Then when you look at how Mandela evolved, Mandela considered the fact that there was a history. He knew that Abba Lutuli, one of the founding fathers of ANC were there, that he was in the third cadre. You have people like Walter Sisulu, Oliver Tambo. Had it not been that Oliver Tambo died, Oliver Tambo would have been the president of South Africa. Probably Mandela would never have been the president of South Africa. So he was even willing to concede, and when he got in there, he did only one term. He didn't try to personalize power. He tried to situate it within a collective, that this is the ANC leadership. He enthroned, party supremacy, over the interest of individual. And while in power, he tried to bridge the racial divide. He didn't see people as Muslim or Christian. He abhorred religious divide. He abhorred, ethnic divide. He prevented, the issue of Inkatha, the KwaZulu and Xhosa people, from becoming a war, and integrated them into his government. Same thing, he ensured that the white supremacists, and the ANC military wings did not eventually clash. So he was able to build what a commentator here called a rainbow coalition, and that is selfless. He did that with love. Mandela said when he was leaving Robben Island, as he was walking through Portsmouth prison, walking towards the door, it occurred to him that, look, if he didn't leave the bitterness and the vindictiveness behind him, he would still be in prison. He was more or less saying a leader must be compassionate, must not seek vengeance. We should forget about retributive justice. We should see each other as one and show love to each other.
So take it from there.
That sort of picture.
So take it from there. You will see that
how realistic it will
Mandela
be
saw the world as a global village. And that what he was fighting for was not just discrimination against the blacks. He said he also was fighting against discrimination against the whites. So what he was saying is that we should see ourselves essentially as belonging as human beings. And then we should, the human race has a lot of lessons to learn from this. That is why you see the celebration of Mandela is across the board. The whites are celebrating his life. The blacks are celebrating his life. Even his oppressors have now turned out to be what? He's admired. Because he has led a life of fulfillment.
Yeah.
The man said, "Oh, power is transient." You can see when he was in power, he was not on record as being authoritarian. He left it.
Yeah.
Why are people, a present generation of leaders, particularly in Nigeria, why do they want to die in office?
Yeah, he actually.
It is only when you attempt to die in office that you can make an impact.
Barrister,
Yeah,
most
yeah,
of the
Mandela-
wars-
yeah.
most of the
I want
wars
that
going on in
Abubakar
Africa-
Yesufu
Mandela actually, yeah,
to make a comment.
He actually,
on this.
believed in the policy of forgiveness, so to say, and he believed that white domination is as dangerous as black domination. So he didn't want anybody to dominate the other. He wanted a coalition based on equity, fair play, and the rule of law, so to say. Like I was trying to say the other day, before he came to office, you had this social degeneracy in South Africa. So he was able to bring social degeneration, economic determinism, mental emancipation. Before then, the blacks saw the whites as semi-god, and a lot of things, too numerous to mention, that makes him an icon. And truly, his life is worth celebrating.
And it's worth noting that most of the wars in Africa currently, it's around political power, struggle for political power. Go and look at each of those countries. Libya, it's about power to get rid of Gaddafi and enthrone another person. Same thing in Egypt. Today is about power. What happened in Tunisia and so many other countries. So when you actually look at the fact that Mandela said, look, we don't need this. You need to have a successive, order of succession. Allow the younger people to take over power. Don't monopolize it. Do the little bit you can do and leave the place.
So
Okay,
that's
I
more
think
progressive.
beyond that, some people have, all of us are agreed that he was a universal icon. He was not just a leader. Mandela was and still remains a statesman. That's why, and our leaders have a lot, our politicians have a lot to borrow from that. You need to strive to be a statesman, elder statesman, where you see issues not from the spectacle, with the spectacle.
I don't know
of
if,
passion.
do you achieve that by age? Maybe elder statesman?
I mean, statesman. Statesman is not a
It's an
question of
elder.
age.
Okay.
It's a world view that you see issues not just from the narrow prism of your party.
You have a broader horizon.
Broader horizon. How many of our politicians are statesmen who will commend government when they do things right and then criticize government when they do things wrong? Well, who will not see issues merely from the perspective of partisanship? People who are Democrats. But Mandela was a true Democrat. Unfortunately, our own situation today is that we have people who claim to practice democracy without being prepared to be Democrats. There's no respect for constitutionalism, no respect for fundamental rights, no respect for rule of law. There is, pervasiveness of corruption. You don't become a statesman if you are guilty of all of this. Mandela is not on record as having acquired or seen wealth.
And he was not a godfather.
He was not a godfather to anybody. You can see.
No,
And he was prepared to allow the young to grow. That was why he ceded power to Thabo Mbeki. When he could have, he said, "Oh,
let me go for a second.
let me go for a second
All
time."
right,
And that was
thank
the
you.
point you
Yes,
made
yeah.
the other time. Well, we are not saying that those who want to go for second time
Are not free to do so.
are not free to do so.
You should show
But
your
it must be a
credentials.
product of your achievements.
Your
And people
credentials.
must
All
desire.
right, because of time, gentlemen,
No,
we have
but
to, I
but-
think we've spoken of. I just give you 10 seconds to round up.
Well, we have said it all, and we have, it will appear as if we are saying the same thing continuously.
over and
again.
over, yeah.
Mandela an icon, Mandela did 4 times, and his marks will continue to be indelible in our history books, and let's pray that our leaders will try and emulate same.
Okay.
I would not want
I
to
think
mention
we
anything,
still have a
let's just
couple of
pray.
minutes. I think we still have a couple of minutes. Now, gentlemen, I just want to ask this. Mandela was the leader of the youth wing of the ANC. An armed,
Umkoto Wisigwe.
an
Umkoto Wisigwe,
armed group. He was actually involved in spearheading bombings campaigns.
yes. Resistance.
But they were not bombing people. They were having bombs in government installations where no empty government buildings. Okay? So we are not talking about someone who just had a completely clean slate. I don't know how you respond to that.
Well,
yes.
We're like, yes, you say we like I always say there were two Mandelas, the militant Mandela and the statesman. Just like you say, there were two Bismarcks, the courageous Prussian statesman and the German chancellor who was afraid. Mandela was, as a young man, he was bitter against the minority rule. You know, I mean, Mandela believed that he had no right to obey the law because that law was not rooted in morality. And as any law that's not rooted in morality, you have the right to disobey that law and even fight against that law. It's legal to fight against illegal law that's not rooted in morality. That was exactly what Mandela did via his Nkuto Usigwe. It was nothing new. In fact, that was what he did in the Rwanda trial. He told the Rwanda court that he didn't believe in the composition because that was a wicked thing. It was not rooted in morality. It was not rooted in good sense. So any law that is not rooted in morality is a bad law.
Okay.
So he resisted that
How
bad
do
law.
you respond to that?
Yeah, you know, there's a constable look for till today. He was charged for leaving the country, you know, to Ethiopia, you know, without authorization. He was living under a very repressive regime, and he felt it was his duty to resist. And the fruit of that resistance is what we have today in modern South Africa. He was never a terrorist. He was a freedom fighter. So within that context, which everybody has a right, you know, to fight against repression, Mandela did the right thing. He was a complete human being, resisted oppression, and enthroned justice in South Africa.
Thank you
Justice
very
for
much.
all.
5 seconds.
I agree completely with him. And I think, on a party note, I think Mandela's life typifies what, you know, Judge Simati said. He said, a real man does not look around to see on which side he can live better, but rather on which side duty lies. And that is what Mandela's life
We just put a finger there.
Yes.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for coming on the program and speaking very well. I've been speaking with Abubakar Yesufu, Lagos-based lawyer, League of Patriotic Lawyers, Wahab Shitu, human rights activist, Lagos-based lawyer as well. I had Tochukwu Izukama, a public affairs analyst, and we've also had Biodun Shomi, who is also a public affairs analyst. That's how much we can take today, gentlemen, and everyone who had been a part of the program today, Daytime Talk. My name is Emmanuel Irei. See you next time.
This is Peace Hotels Lagos, the ultimate business leisure hotels. Peace Hotels operates state-of-the-art and recreational facilities. From the closet of your room, you can browse through the internet and make direct international calls because we also operate the PTO license for Peace Talk wired telephone line. Peace Hotels is home away from home with its 5-star altitude, its beautiful ambience, spacious parking lot, furnished suites, cocktail bar, restaurant, with African and intercontinental cuisine and Chinese delicacies, and a multi-purpose hall for your AGMs, seminars and workshops. And Peace Hotels is just 15 minutes drive from the airport in Lagos. For your bookings, log on the website www.peacehotels.com. Peace Hotels, blazing the trail of blending business with pleasure in the hospitality industry.